The debate over debates. Welcome to Columbus on the Record. It happens every election cycle. Some candidates want lots of face-to-face debate. Their opponents ignore them until they can't, or they ignore them until Election Day. This cycle, the debate over debate seems more pointed. Candidates all over the country are ducking debates for a variety of reasons. Here in Ohio, Republicans J.D. Vance and Mike DeWine have so far refused to debate their opponents for U.S. Senate and governor. They both rejected invitations from the independent Ohio Debate Commission. Republicans claim the commission is not neutral, and they point to last spring's Senate primary debate on the GOP side when moderator Karen Kassler played the role of fact-checker many times. Here's one of them.
There are problems with this election. 5 million more people voted than were registered to vote, and that's according to the U.S. Census Bureau. There's a problem. We need to investigate it. The January 6th Commission should be investigating that instead of some false accusation of some kind of insurrection.
And again, the claim that Mr. Gibbons just made about more ballots cast than registered voters has been fact-checked and no evidence has been found to support it. We're moving on. Josh Mandel.
To clarify, we edited that clip for length. Karen did not interrupt Mike Gibbons. She let him finish, make a few other false claims, and then she fact-checked him. Andrew Tobias, Karen Kassler is why we can't have nice things. Okay? This debate happens all the time, but this year just seems a little different.
Yeah, I've been trying to focus in this conversation, at least about the Senate race, as opposed to individual organizations, whether there will be debates or not. And I think, fundamentally, J.D. Vance and Tim Ryan both say they want to debate each other. Vance is, actually his performance in the Republican debate supposedly helped him get Donald Trump's endorsement. He's kind of good on that kind of setting. So I think it's going to happen. But at the same time, just this debate over debates period of this is kind of dragged on longer than you'd sort of expect. And so I'm starting to wonder, even though both candidates say they've agreed to debate on October 4th in Miami University. So I don't really know what's going on with this, but I assume it's going to get worked out. But I'm like I said, I'm starting to have questions.
Morgan Harper, the Vance campaign says that the Ohio Debate Commission is not neutral. They point to its executive director who ran for office as a Democrat some years ago. And they also point to the fact that she donated to Tim Ryan's campaign 8 years ago. You took part in one of these debates this past spring, the Democratic primary debate on the Senate side. Did you think they were neutral, the commission?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit silly to claim that because someone 8 years ago or whatever ran for office that they're not capable in their current role as the head of a nonpartisan organization to pull off a neutral debate. And I actually thought that the debate was very well done that the Ohio Debate Commission organized. The fact that over 80% of Ohioans want to see debates. If these don't happen, that just further demonstrates the disconnect between our politics and what people are really looking for.
Joe, 80% say they want to see debates. 80% don't watch them, though. So how much of an impact does this have?
Gosh, it's hard to tell. But the thing is that I need to defend Karen, first of all, because all of the questions that were put out at these debates came from the audience.
Yeah. Not that audience.
Not that audience. But they were submitted, and she kind of put them together in a list that made sense. And also, the Debate Commission, the director of the Debate Commission, people need to understand, and no offense to the director of the Debate Commission, but she's more like an event organizer. She's kind of pulling things together. She's not telling them what questions to ask and, that kind of thing. That's not, so it's kind of disingenuous in some way to say that that's the problem. But who knows, these debates, back to what you asked me, who knows how this will play not having that opportunity. But I can tell you one thing, that a lot of people like me, journalists and people who are looking to see what the candidates are really saying on important issues, we're going to miss the debates if they don't happen.
Gina, I don't understand why Mike DeWine won't do at least one debate with Nan Whaley. He may still. The time is still more time in this campaign, but he's done this for 40 years. He's very good. He never really ducks reporters' questions. He takes them all at news conferences. Why not just get up there once, debate her, and then move on?
As I've been saying on the show since February, my party, the Republicans, are overconfident. And this is being proved out, and they should have taken a more, shall we say, agreeable attitude early on this before they started making all these statements.
But he's been consistently leading by 15 to 18 points in polls, though. He hasn't wavered in that lead.
I've had discussions with political science professors, and we're all in agreement that the polling system now, due to weighting, when you have populations in flux, when the college-educated suburbanites are moving away from Republicans to Democrats, when working class Democrats are moving to becoming Republicans, we don't know how to weight the polls accurately. And that's why on all this stuff, I say, no, I still don't
believe the polls.
I don't believe the polls, and I'll go back to what I said in February. I still think this will be a good year for Democrats. I still think Nan Whaley wins, even though nobody else believes me.
Well, write that down. Andrew, J.D. Vance, you mentioned that he did well in the primary debates. At least he didn't threaten to punch another candidate, which two others did. But he's still a rookie candidate here, his first time run for office. He's made a couple minor gaffes on the trail. Does he have more to risk by debating Tim Ryan, who's done this before?
I think, honestly, he has more to gain. Tim Ryan has put out ads kind of presenting himself in a certain fashion. You sort of see things anecdotally and in polling data, to the extent you believe it, that Ryan is persuading some Republican voters, some slice, to support him. I think Ryan's done a good job kind of presenting himself as like the typical Youngstown man, which is just kind of like the guy you'd like to have a beer with, and all those like tropes about politics and stuff like that. So Vance could get up there and actually contrast his views. He could kind of try to cut through some of those things. So I just don't see it as really being any downside for him, unless he says something dumb, of course. But but at the same time, I just think like this discussion about who's hosting the debate and where. I mean, it comes down to, do they want to debate or not? Yep. And if they want to do it, they'll make it happen.
Has to be a better way. It happens every 2 years, I guess, every 4 years in the presidential race. Early voting for November's election begins on October 12th. Ohioans can vote absentee from home without an excuse. They can vote early in person. Despite those conveniences, a new study still ranks Ohio as the 10th worst state in the country when it comes to the cost of voting. The Nonpartisan Cost of Voting Index ranks Ohio 41st. They look at 10 factors, including ease of registration, availability of early voting, same-day voter registration. Oregon, Washington, and Vermont are the easiest. Of course, Oregon and Washington have mail-in voting. Ohio ranks 41st. New Hampshire is worst, and Mississippi is almost worst. Gene Krebs, do you think this is accurate? We do have early voting. Starts 30 days before the official election day.
I got to tell you, I saw that study, and I am going, I'm not so sure about this particular study, because the studies I've seen over the past years has Ohio's always ranked very, very highly because we have no fault absentee voting, which means that you don't need to have a real excuse in order to absentee vote. And that's something that really picks up the participation. I will say this, when you look at Wisconsin's same-day voter registration, I know many of my fellow GOPers go, oh, we don't want to see that. Oh, no, it's an invitation to fraud. When Wisconsin implemented this, it led to a 5-point immediate jump in the Republican index. Mm-hmm. Okay, so data, please pay some attention to data here, folks.
Republicans can procrastinate as much as Democrats
But actually what it was small business owners.
Yeah, they're busy.
Yeah, they're busy.
Morgan Harper, Ohio, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania got no credit for their early in-person voting because they only have one spot per county. Is that fair? Should they have gotten partial credit? This index says it's too hard for people in outlying areas without good transportation to get to one spot.
Well, I actually appreciated that at least there was a distinction being made, because a lot of times, and this is certainly something we hear from Frank LaRose quite a bit, is what's the problem? We have early voting. Well, actually, we need to look at what are the barriers to voting. That's what this was looking at, the cost of voting. And if you still have to get to a whole different part of town to be able to access your county board of elections to do that early voting, well, that is disqualifying most people who have very busy schedules, small business owners, from being able to take advantage of that opportunity. So I appreciated that nuance there, and I think that's something that we need to be very honest about in the state, about what other barriers exist, including same-day registration.
Joe Ingles, Ohio has not really passed any new voting restrictions since 2020. I think 19 states have, so that didn't hurt our ranking this time around.
But there are a lot of things being considered that could pass, especially in lame duck. We've got some voting reform legislation on the boilerplate down at the Statehouse. It could pass. And there's been a lot of talk about the need for that, even though if you listen to Secretary of State LaRose, he will tell you on one hand that we have the best system in the country, and on the other hand, he will not denounce what Donald Trump and a lot of the Republicans are saying, that Ohio has problems. But statistically, look at it, we have a very, very minuscule rate of voter fraud.
And that's the criticism of this study and other reform efforts, is that one side sees regulations as suppressing the vote, another side sees regulations as improving security. And that this doesn't help that argument, help settle that argument.
Yeah, I think Ohio generally has a pretty good system. I don't really know anything about what other states do, but I would not overlook the issue about having a central voting location for early voting. I mean, in Cleveland, if people have ever been to the Board of Elections there's no parking around there. There's a lot of one-way streets. It's difficult to get there if you live in a suburb, even if you have a car, and if you don't, then it's even harder. So that's a real issue. I know there's big fight even among the Republican Board of Election members in Cleveland wanted to have additional drop-box locations, but just with the dialogue that you see in the Republican Party, you have J.D. Vance, like the Senate candidate, saying that, we shouldn't have an election season, we should have election day. If anything, I would expect that if there are going to be changes, they're going to push more in the restrictive direction. So, I don't really know what to make of the national ranking, but that's kind of how I see it.
Gene, especially on a national election, every county runs their own election. But we elect federal leaders using this very different system. I mean, every state, different dates, different registration process. There has to be a different way.
By keeping it so diffuse, it makes it difficult also then to hack. Okay, and in Ohio, as it's famously said, because it's 50% Republicans working there, 50% Democrats working there, they all watch each other like a hawk. And in states like Ohio, that tends to reduce the possibility of fraud that can occur. And here, the amount of fraud each year is measured in the tens.
Yeah. So take Ohio's system and put it statewide. I mean, nationwide.
Because, they should. I mean, we have a lot to recommend it, but then the status quo has to give up power. And convincing status quo to give up power is way beyond us.
All right, with little fanfare, state lawmakers and the Redistricting Commission, they've missed the latest deadlines for drawing fair state legislative and congressional district maps. Voters this year will use maps ruled illegal by the Ohio Supreme Court. The outgoing Chief Justice recently renewed her call for a new, truly independent redistricting commission, one that completely excludes elected officials.
Let's try having ordinary, sensible people who are not driven by politics, but rather by what's fair representation and justice.
Maureen O'Connor used her final State of the Judiciary speech to say she intends to be very involved in efforts to change the Ohio Constitution to create that truly independent commission. Harper, what will it do to that effort to have the Chief Justice of the Ohio Supreme Court, once she leaves the bench, heading up this effort, or at least playing a major role?
Very unclear. I mean, there's been such a big effort to bring more fairness to how we're drawing our maps in the state. So many advocates and activists have put a lot of their time into it, and we continue to run up against a barrier of a lot of people in the state legislature from the Republican Party who do not care. So how it will impact things, having someone from their own party now being on the ground advocating that way, TBD, but whatever it takes to try to make sure that we're bringing more integrity to this process.
Andrew, are lawmakers hearing that, listening to this call for a different system completely? Are they paying attention to it, or are they just going to keep doing what they've been doing for the past 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, well, in the last 6 months or so, I feel like Republican state lawmakers have basically been ignoring the court, so I don't really see why they're going to start listening to what Maureen O'Connor has to say now that she's on her way out the door. But as far as just this prospects of this ballot issue, I mean, the way I see it is that in the past, I think Republicans have gone along with this because they've had a fear that Democrats might make gains, kind of push something further than what they'd be comfortable with. And that was kind of the backdrop for this going through the first time. And I think it was the lack of, well, actually, it was the bipartisan support that helped this stuff pass. If you get an environment where Republicans are full-throated in opposition of this, the ballot campaign is going to be competing with other stuff for resources. This has failed before. So I think it's a real uphill climb to get this on the ballot. Of course, we don't know how politics are going to change over the next 10 years. But at this point, I mean, if, like I said, I think it's going to be a real challenge for the advocates to try to get something going on this.
Joe, the time is now. If they're going to do something, it has to be now. It's top of the news. People are angry about it. People are paying attention to it more than they have in the past.
It depends on the people. I think that, yes, we're paying attention to it for sure. And people who are clued in to politics are paying attention. But if you go out on the street still to this day and ask someone about redistricting, they'll go, rewatting? Because people don't understand it. And I think that's the key thing. If you had more people who did understand it, we would see a much different, but you know, one thing that I do want to say is we had many reform proposals that went to the ballot before the ones that were actually put in place, and they failed. And why did they fail? Because the people who didn't want them put on a massive campaign. It's easy to get a no vote.
And they failed because, Gene, they were very confusing. They were not simple.
Very complex.
What is the path? If you were to write the amendment, the simpler the better. The simpler the better. It's got to be the way to go.
Yeah, I would write it down, and then I would edit it, the bejeebies out of it, and get it down to 25 words or less. That's what you do on these things. You know, the previous one, and I know these people. A lot of them are my friends. I'm friends with everybody, both sides. But God, it's a broad statement. But they made it way too complex, and just simply keep it. State shall establish citizens-driven initiative, put in there that, shall not do this, shall not break up cities unless populations, blah, blah, blah. You can do it.
All right. For Ohio abortion clinics, the landmark's Dobbs decision is on hold, and it could be for quite a while. Last week, Hamilton County Common Pleas Court Judge Christian Jenkins blocked Ohio's 6-week abortion ban. He said it violates the state's constitution. This week, he indicated he is ready to extend the temporary injunction order even further. That means Ohio clinics can perform abortions up to 20 weeks into a pregnancy. Joe Ingles, it really is legal limbo for these clinics. They have resumed abortions as they were before Dobbs. Do we have any idea how long that will be allowed to take place?
Well, we know that right now, abortions in Ohio are on hold until October 12th. Then we'll get some idea of where it goes from there. Long term, we're looking at a fight because whoever wins or loses, they're going to appeal that. And it's probably going to go to the Ohio Supreme Court, which is dominated by Republicans. So, you can guess what's going to happen there. The longer issue, though, is people are looking at this and talking about, well, how should this work out? What should Ohio have? Because a lot of people are looking at the ban that we had in the summer and saying there's problems with it. Doctors say that they have problems interpreting it, the attorneys too. Different, people do different things with it. And the other thing is you see the stories like the 10-year-old that was a rape victim and she had to go over to Indiana to get an abortion. People didn't like that. I mean, that was making the news and headlines because people were really upset. So there's a lot of things that people are going to need to talk about and address in the future. And when they say abortion is on the ballot, I think it really is on the ballot in some way in November.
Andrew, do abortion rights opponents, are they worried about this ruling, or do they just see it's a Democratic judge from a city and it will get overturned on appeal, and certainly by the Ohio Supreme Court should it get that far?
I think it's more the latter. They've been really playing a long game in terms of overturning Roe versus Wade. It's something that anti-abortion forces have been working on literally for decades. So I don't want to make light of just like the magnitude of the issue at this very moment. But yeah, I mean, we'll see how the November election turns out. But I would fully expect that they're just basically waiting for it to get to the Ohio Supreme Court, and they feel confident about their chances there.
Morgan, do you think this law, the ruling, is upheld and the 6-week ban is nullified?
Not exactly sure how this is all going to play out, but I did want to say that, when we were talking earlier about the debate and what is on the line for Mike DeWine in debating, having some video content that's talking about what we just discussed and forcing people to take positions, both Mike DeWine and J.D. Vance, and allowing that content to be distributed is something that could motivate people to turn out to vote. And so we need to demand clarity from all of our elected officials on these positions and make sure that we're all doing what's right, which is protecting a woman's right to choose.
Well, Mike DeWine is pretty clear on it. I think there's a lower profile on his website anyway right now, but he's been pretty clear. on his pro-life stance. Gene, does this make it more urgent for lawmakers to pass something after the election, a stronger abortion ban, as many want to do?
I think what they really need to do, and I'm really surprised that I'm making this statement, is they need to come up with something that's well crafted. What they've done to this point in time has been overly vague, open to a variety of interpretations, and it's a full employment act for lawyers. Hospitals are immediately, OBGYN practices in all hospitals that I'm aware of are promptly hiring criminal defense attorneys on retainer. They've always had civil, now they're hiring criminal.
Yeah. All right, our last topic. It is hard to move into and hard to move around Central Ohio. There are not enough houses, there are not enough apartments, especially affordable ones. Columbus City government is trying to change that. If voters approve, the city will borrow some $200 million to build and incentivize affordable housing. Morgan Harper, is this a good use of taxpayer money, and will it work?
Well, we need to be doing whatever we can to address the housing crisis, so all efforts appreciated, but I think we also need to be honest about what is going to fill this gap completely. And the reality is that no city in this country is going to be able to do that entirely on its own, that we need to have federal action that happens to bring the resources to bear to increase the supply of housing that we see throughout this country and in Central Ohio, and also have transit that makes sure that housing is accessible to people once it's built.
What about the private sector, Gene? I mean, they're profit motivated, and they tend to look for houses. Right now, it's the mini mansions, the McMansions that have the highest profit margin. Starter homes, not so much.
Yes, but here's the important thing to remember is that in nationwide, 75% of the land zoned for residential housing, it is illegal to put an apartment on that land. It's because of an abuse of zoning that we've seen going on. And this was tried to be fixed under the Nixon administration by George D. Romney when he was head of the Department of Commerce. And he tried to fix it by saying that cities that engage, that are able to move past this zoning logjam and be able to put in more affordable housing this way would move up on the point system for various federal money. Nixon promptly fired him.
Yeah. Joe, that's not in my backyard. We've seen the debates in German Village, we've seen them in Bexley, we see them in Dublin. We don't want apartments because that's too many people, and too many people we don't want in our neighborhoods.
That's it. And the other thing is that the tax system, the way that it is right now, makes it so that having property is a key investment. And a lot of people have property and they continue, you see these corporations go out and buy house after house after house that could be affordable for someone. They're buying it, they're flipping it, they're making money on it, and then the people can no longer afford it. So the stock is going down and there's nothing to deal with that problem.
Andrew, is there we all know about the Intel project and the $2 billion that they're going to invest in that to bring that company here and create all kinds of jobs. Has there ever been a talk of a housing $2 billion, like a housing Ohio instead of jobs Ohio? Try to incentivize communities to build a wide variety of housing.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that, but it'll be interesting to see because as Columbus is actually growing and you see it's kind of downstream from places like Austin or San Francisco, where this is just a crazy problem, where in San Francisco you can spend $2,000 a month renting like a trailer in somebody's backyard or something like that. It'll be interesting to see once we get confronted with the issue how that's going to play out, because I mean, I live in Clintonville and it's kind of, it's like an upper middle class neighborhood. In a house that I just was looking, somebody bought it for $300,000 4 years ago. They're listing it for $500,000 today. And so that's not with really any change in the property. It's just kind of the change in the property value. And that's just not a sustainable, path like for the community at large to take, unless we have more Intels coming, giving more money. But, it's just even for, people who are more well off, it just becomes really unsustainable, much less people who aren't.
Yeah, you worry about what happened in 2008 happening again. All right, time now for our final off-the-record parting shots. Gene Krebs, you up first.
So this week I went from thinking that ranked choice voting had a 15% chance of success in Ohio in 2024 to now it's about 50-50. Had a very good week, and my partner in this, Sean Logan, former Democrat House member, former head of ODNR under Ted Strickland, and I are very encouraged by some changes this week.
All right, Morgan.
So I'm going to highlight a national issue. We had movement on a bill that would allow local journalism to be able to generate more, or be able to receive more of the ad revenue from big tech, Google and Facebook, and that's moving forward in the Senate, so that's a positive thing.
Great. Andrew.
So I'm going to be going to the Ohio Democratic Party's family reunion tomorrow to cover Tim Ryan speaking. I'm going to a J.D. Vance event earlier in the day, but the ODP event is interesting to me because it's the first time they've had an in-person meeting basically since the coronavirus pandemic, and so it is outdoors. It's at the Kemba Amphitheater, whatever it's called now, but yeah, so just interesting to see everybody getting together now, and especially after the pandemic is over, according to President Joe Biden. We'll see how that goes over.
It is. But, yeah. And Joe.
Well, there are talks about some debates, and I hope that we do see those, and I hope we see independent moderators, journalists asking the questions and holding the candidates' feet to the fire, because if we don't have that, it's very hard to decide on a candidate without having all of the information about them.
Okay. My last comment, congratulations to Mike DeWine's 3 granddaughters who ran strong races at last Saturday night's Cedarville Friendship Cross Country Invitational. They not only ran well, but they gave their grandfather a pretty good reason to miss yet another Donald Trump rally in the other parts of the state that same evening. So congratulations to them. If you need a reason to miss an event you don't want to attend, October 14th, we will host a Columbus on the Record live in front of a studio audience here at our headquarters on the OSU campus. I and the panel will analyze the home stretch of the campaign. We'll have a Q&A session and a reception. It's from 6 to 8 p.m. on October 14th. Go to wosu.org/events to buy tickets. We hope to see you there. It'll be fun. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Please check us out online. You can continue the conversation on Facebook, and you can see each episode on demand on your time through our website, wosu.org/COTR, and through the PBS video app. For our crew and for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.